I'm guessing that you don't like your time being wasted. Well, me neither. So that's why in this video, I'm gonna give you 6 easy things that you can do in the next 24 hours to make more money driving for DoorDash. Now, if this is the first time that you and I are meeting, this channel is dedicated to your success in this gig economy, the side hustle. So if you are new here, consider subscribing. And speaking of quick tips, the fastest way to master these delivery apps is to check out my Mastering a Delivery course. That's on yourdrivermike.com. Okay, let's get into number 1, but let me just set your expectations here really quickly. Before we go over these 6 power tips, keep in mind that these will help increase your earnings, but don't expect to go from making, let's say, $12, $13 an hour to $50. Just be realistic, right, with these tips here. But these tips absolutely will help. Number 1, set standards. When I first started driving for these apps in 2015, I just drove. I think a lot of the ads that we used to see and probably even still see is basically that it's very easy. You just go online, you drive, and you make money. And yes, you do, but if you have no strategy, no real thresholds for what you want to hit, honestly, that hour, that day, that week, that month, that year, then you really have no idea the margin on your numbers. And in fact, I want to help you understand your numbers. So I created a free chart that works with either numbers on macOS or Excel to track your earnings, your miles, your shift, your dollars per hour, etc. That's linked down below. Number 2 is something that I haven't considered really for some time, and I know some people that could benefit from this. Consider this. Decrease the weight in your vehicle. So all that junk that you have in your trunk is hurting your miles per gallon. Anything you can do to obviously increase revenue but decrease expenses, you want to do it. And we can see here from the Department of Energy, just reducing cargo in your vehicle by 100 pounds can affect your miles per gallon by 1%. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, 1%, but if you have a lot of junk in your vehicle, you might as well clear it out because it's costing you money. Number 3, this is a big one. Make more money by controlling what you can control on these apps. That's tips. I want 30 to 50% of your total gross revenue to come from tips. So how do we increase tips? Now, I'm going to have a complete guide, really a mastermind just for tips on yourdrivermike.com. So subscribe to the newsletter there as well if you want a heads up on that. But number 1, I would just have the right gear. I know drivers that when they started, they didn't even have a hot and cold bag. And you are literally missing out on free money by not having a $8 hot and cold bag. And since we're talking about DoorDash, you can get a DoorDash hot and cold bag for $8 with free shipping. It's a no-brainer. Now, if you really want to level up and, in my opinion, get even more tips, be more prepared. Get a catering bag and, moreover, a pizza bag. If you plan on doing this for like a summer or a year, even as a side hustle, that's a relatively small investment to get exponentially more back, hopefully, in tips. Nextly, when it comes to tips, I would immediately communicate anything that's out of the ordinary with a delivery to your customer. Anything, because no one likes surprises, especially when it comes to customer service. So any substitutions, right? If the restaurant is out of something, here's another example. Recently, because of everything going on, some of these restaurants, they've closed their fountain drink sections, right? The soda machines. So they just have the canned sodas. So I gave my customer a heads up. I said, hey, just to let you know, the restaurant is giving me a canned Dr. Pepper, it was, because it was a 12-ounce can versus a 24-ounce fountain drink that they ordered. Because if you're the customer and you're thirsty and you want this big 24-ounce and you get this tiny little 12-ounce can and no one told you, do you really want to tip the delivery driver? Nextly, traditionally when we think of tips, we think of good service, right? And that makes me want to tip whenever I'm wowed with service. So when it comes to service at the very, very small interaction time that you have with the customer, make it count. So if you do have an actual handoff to the customer, just focus on the fundamentals, present the food well, and please have that hot and cold bag. Don't just have the actual bag of food that doesn't look very professional, and then lead with good customer service. Number 4, that's mastering what I'm calling the peak pay paradox. So that spreadsheet that I talked about earlier, I want you to really look at your numbers and then compare what your data is telling you on peak pay. It doesn't matter what peak pay maxes out at in your marketplace. You could max out at $2, $3, $4 peak pay. I want you to look at your data, actually run the numbers and say, well, where is the hotspot? Where's the best zone for me to drive when it comes to peak pay? What I mean by that is, what does the data suggest? What bonus gives you the highest gross revenue per hour? Because if the data tells you that you probably shouldn't drive on the maximum peak pay because you don't want to waste your time on the road, don't sign up for those shifts. Number 5, stop driving odd hours. When it comes to food delivery apps, I mean, it's kind of predictable when the busiest times are. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then maybe that late evening, you might get that surge there, kind of the bar hours. But generally, you should know when it's busy. So if you're driving super early in the AM when honestly not that many people are up and the only deliveries you're going to get are the few places that are open for early AM breakfast, or if you're driving kind of that lull in between breakfast and lunch, you got to think, are you really utilizing your time the best way that you could? So what I want you to do, if those hours work best for you, is look at different niches. Maybe look at a grocery delivery or rideshare if you're comfortable doing so, and see, well, are there other niches that pay me better than food delivery? Number 6, when it comes to hotspots on DoorDash, let's go a little bit deeper and think about what's located in those hotspots. When I talk about hotspots, I talk about different hotspots performing differently, and they do. So let's go deeper than that and not only look at dense hotspots, those are hotspots with a lot of restaurants, but what types of restaurants. If you can pick up from, let's say, a higher end restaurant, typically where the bill is going to be like $100+, right? So think of the tip amounts on that kind of bill. So 10%, $10 tip, 20%, $20 tip. Now, of course, that is not guaranteed. Tips are not guaranteed. Just because there's a higher bill, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get those larger tips. But that's, again, something to look at your data and say, well, I'm going to try to park and be at this hotspot with these restaurants that have a traditionally higher bill and see what I get as far as tips. That way you can go really deep in your data. You can say, well, my data is telling me that this marketplace gives me a strong dollars per hour. Well, maybe during these times. And then the $3 peak pay bonus is the best bonus. And then within that certain marketplace, this hotspot is my go-to hotspot. So doing just a bit of research and maybe tweaking your driving a bit can help you make more money driving for DoorDash or really most food delivery platforms. And these are easy things that you can do in the next 24 hours. So if you got value in this video, definitely leave a like. And for the best accessories for your side hustle, make sure to check out my Amazon storefront linked down below. You can click or tap the screen now for my most recent video, as well as a video recommended for you. And I'll see you in the next one.